Good morning, everybody. We have some breaking news that I thought that is very important in our industry that I need to share with you guys. It's more about what's happening in Oklahoma. Oklahoma Patrol and ICE did a joint operation. Um, the state of Oklahoma has arrested 125 truck drivers, and I want to go into a little bit more detail than the information that was given online that I saw. Um, the 125 truck drivers that were arrested, some of which had licenses who were issued illegally. Now we want to try to get into a little bit more on what are they attacking, what are they going after to create awareness out there. So they're basically pulling over everybody. So a joint operation pulled over 520 truck drivers at checkpoints. Close to 25% of those drivers they found that were illegally licensed in the U.S. So what does that mean? So um, non-domicile, first of all, we need to get the definition of non-domicile drivers. So non-domicile drivers are, can be asylum seekers who cross the border. Somehow or another, they got their class one licenses, but they could have, they could have their pending case that will take 2, 3, 4 years for somebody to actually see it. The average case in the U.S., I think, takes about 3 or 4 years, and if you appeal it, you can go up to 5 to 10 years. For the full case to be over. So while they're in this, limbo, then they are allowed to get their class one licenses and drive. So that's one person who is considered a non-domicile driver. Second one would be, I would say, somebody who comes into the U.S. under the student visa program. So this is huge because there is a lot of this happening, not just in the U.S. but also in Canada, where people are coming through the student visa program. And I believe, in Canada, definitely they're allowed to work up to X amount of hours. A lot of them get their class one license, and then through that they would get some sort of entry into Canada and find their way to permanent residence. In the US, a lot of people with a student visa are also getting their class one licenses. And then you have the other class, which is just people with B1, B2 visitor visas that are getting their class one licenses. So the state of Oklahoma basically and I said, you know what, we're pulling everybody over. Let's see what's going on. And they found, unbelievable, that 25% of the drivers that they pulled over were, foreigners. Um, uh, I don't know exactly, what their case is, but they found a lot of them had, overstayed their visas. So you come into the U.S., you're allowed to stay for, 6 months. You have a visitor visa, or you have 1 year. And then people are staying past that date. Now, if you stay past that date and then you got your class one license, that's probably the people that were arrested, or if anything fishy in their files, or I think they're going above and beyond than just the paperwork or what the driver says. They're actually looking into it. They're actually checking in on it, and then they're arresting the drivers. They found that the people that were arrested were either from India, from Russia, from China, from Venezuela, and then there were a few more on that list. Now, basically, the reason I wanted to do this live is I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about this? Is Oklahoma in the right? And should there be, more states that follow? I could tell you my opinion that I wish Canada would take this, approach, because there's a lot of illegal drivers here in Canada, but we're not going to get into that. This is more of what's happening in the US, but definitely I hope that Canada would learn from this, because there's a lot of crap happening in Canada also. But what happens if these pop-ups would be in Georgia, and if you see some more of them in Virginia, and you saw some more of them in Florida? How do you guys feel about it? Do you guys have any questions about it? I'd really love to hear some of your comments or questions. But I also want you to kind of understand that Sean Duffy has announced a national emergency, and this is going to be on the news for a while. This is not going to stop, right? This is not going to stop. Trucks are coming off the road. So for those of you that are in it, for those of you who have felt, our economy basically tumbling over the last 3 years. Not the economy, just our industry that has gotten, worse and worse and worse over the last 3 years. How do you guys feel about this? If slowly, they arrested 125 truck drivers, I can assure you those drivers are not going back in the truck. If more and more of these pop-ups happen, there'd be more and more trucks coming off the road. How do you guys feel about this? You have to pass through Oklahoma on I-40. It's a major hub. It's on blast, and the other states will follow. Watch. Okay, so Army guy just made a really good, comment, that other states will follow. So I actually think that other states will follow. Um, and then what is this going to do, or how is this going to affect our trucking industry? So I can assure you that, from 500, just the numbers are so, I never thought it would be this number. They're actually estimating that they're estimating that 190,000 non-domicile truck drivers in the United States. That there are that many in the United States. Now, why are they making such a big deal about it right now? Why is it all over the news? Well, first of all, it's destroying American jobs. I mean, there are people like the cost, the the pay for a truck driver hasn't gone up in the last, I would say, probably 6, 7, 8 years. And I think that this has something to do with it, right? So if a lot of people are coming into the U.S. and working interstate, meaning U.S. to U.S. loads, we have a lot of Canadian drivers going into the U.S. They do loads from Canada into the U.S. and then again from the U.S. into Canada, which is what we're allowed to do. Plus, our hub in Georgia is allowed to do U.S. to U.S. So we have an American company, American drivers, American trucks, American insurance, and then we can, haul freight from U.S. to U.S. But we're talking about the companies that are hiring drivers right now, 190,000 truck drivers, what they're estimating that are illegally right now in the United States running U.S. to U.S. loads, and those are your jobs there, right? So I mean, we hire American truck drivers when we are hiring out of our Atlanta, Georgia terminal. I know of a lot of fleets, and I'm not going to mention any names, but this is the reason why they're cracking down on it. So, for example, I know a company, lots of companies in Illinois and in Wisconsin, they have, 3, 4, 5, 600 truck drivers. And I can assure you, that a lot of them are either on student visas, a lot of them are on they were asylum seekers, and a lot of them are just came as a visitor visa and somehow got their CDL. People have connections, and this is this is what Sean Duffy in the state of emergency said: absolutely stop right now issuing any CDLs to any truck driver that they cannot prove, I guess, that that they're permanent residents. Now, we all know how easy it is, to forge documents. We all know with today's technology, it's very easy to forge whatever you want, right? I mean, if you're just coming to the ministry and say, hey, I need to prove that you're a permanent resident or whatever, it's very easy to give a bill, a fake bill. It's very easy to, edit a bill today. Like, this is what's happening all over the US. And this is really what they're cracking down on right now. So overstayed visas, definitely through the catch and release. So when people used to come into the US, walk into the US, right? And if somebody caught them and then they released them and then they got their CDL license, well, those are the kind of people that they're targeting right now. I don't know about you guys, but if 190,000 trucks came off the road, you rest assured that our rates would probably, skyrocket. If a lot of these truck drivers are no longer trucking. But on the flip side of it, these were the American rules, and people were following the American rules. And if you are an asylum seeker and your file is in, if it's taking 2-3 years for them to read your file, I mean, you had the right to get your Class 1 license. So it's the American rules that kind of, put the U.S. where it is today. So any questions? I'm so glad this is finally happening. Unqualified illegal immigrant drivers are not welcome on American U.S. roads anymore. Okay. Yes. Do it in California. Do it in the California border. So yes, there's actually a lot of comments on that about stationing 5-6 pop-ups around the California as you enter into the next state over on the north or into the east. But we need this done. I mean, I would agree that definitely rules need to get tightened up, and you got to stop taking advantage of our industry, because enough is enough already. 190K is an underestimate. So I actually do believe that is true, because I don't think that they can monitor how many visitors came into the U.S. Like, you have to understand, there's a lot of people that, if my community had a trucking company that's based out of Wisconsin or based out of Ohio, and I live in a different country, and my community is known that there's a trucking company, if I come into the US even as a visitor visa, I mean, I can get my class 1 license. I can work for my community that has a trucking company of 400 or 500 trucks. Right? So I come to the US, I work for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I go back into back to the country where I'm from. And this is happening all over the place, both in Canada and in the US, where, you have foreigners coming in, they work for 6 months, then they go back for 6 months. But they are taking the Canadian and American jobs. So I definitely want to hear, any questions out there. Supply and demand, rates will go up, truck prices will plummet. I have a feeling that that is true, that the truck prices are going to plummet. So far, used trucks, they will not be able to make those payments. I agree with that. As far as those visas go, now you must show up and have a 19 I-9 as well. So 76P1 Army guy, can you elaborate on that, what that means? Have a I-9 as well? I'd like to know a little bit more about that. So most Chicago trucking lease purchase companies would be a great place to start checking. Maybe that is true. Get these, I'm not going to mention any names, Russian, Muslims, Ukrainians, drivers off the roads. So I actually don't like that comment. It has nothing to do with their ethnicities. It has everything to do with their legal status in the US. I don't care who you are. If you have a legal status in the US, obviously you should be working. If you don't have a legal status in the US, absolutely get them off the roads. All right, more comments. I used to run Canada for 2 years straight, never knowing I needed a passport. I finally got caught and my company paid a hefty fine. Plus, you can't have a work permit only. Also, you cannot just do online anymore. You must show up in person. Duffy is smart on this one. I agree that there's a lot of fraud happening online. People know how to cheat test. People know how to use their cell phones, have something in their ear. I mean, I've seen videos all over the place on people falsifying, in order to get their learner's permit. My question is, I don't know how this is in the US, but are you allowed to do your learner's permit in different languages in the US? Because I think in Canada you are allowed to, which I think is totally wrong. But are you allowed to do that in the US? Corrupted are not welcome. Okay. Good morning, Ronan from California. Fred, good morning. Thank you. I think it should be a merit-based. If you commit an accident that was your fault, you should be suspended. I mean, we really don't want to get, Rolando, we really don't want to get to the accidents. I think what they're trying to do is prevent the accidents from happening. And if somebody should not be in the US, or if somebody should not be driving a truck, then the accident probably, I'm not saying that accidents don't happen even with guys that have their green cards or, are US citizens. But I'm saying that the guys that don't and that shouldn't be on the roads, the accidents that happen, it could have been avoided if the driver was not on the road. And let's face it, there is a problem with, English proficiency. I mean, shit, I talk to drivers all the time on the phone and I can't understand half the shit that they say, in certain communities. And do I think that they should be on the road? I think they should definitely work on their English if they want to be truck drivers. I truly believe that, you need to speak and understand, in order to work as a truck driver. Let's keep going. And in Canada so far, I know LMIA, poof. So the LMIA, don't get me started on Canadian programs. There's way too many Canadian programs that bring foreigners in here. But a sign on the highway saying free chicken curry, but it's ICE agents. Yes, in certain states. Okay. They also need to shut down foreign ran MCs that are not operating out of North America. So I actually agree with that. But then, why is it okay for a Canadian, or why is it okay for Canada and Mexico to run US trucking companies, but it's not okay for, a different country, let's take India or Russia or, anyone else. Why is it not okay for them? What drives me nuts a little bit is, all these dispatch services from third world countries. You can't understand a lot of the time what they're saying. Some of them are good. Some of them are horrible. A lot of them have a bad reputation. But, why is it okay for Canadians to open or Mexicans to open in the US? I mean, should there be a rule that only an American citizen should be able to open up a company in the US? I don't think that rule will ever come out because there's just, too many foreign investors in the US. But yeah, let's keep going. They also need to shut down foreign run MCs. So I mean, Oh, somebody just donated 9.99. Thank you very much, whoever that is. I really appreciate it. They also need to shut down foreign-run MCs. Yes, we said that. Okay, if they are cheating CDL tests, they are definitely cheating truck insurance. Oh, and don't get me started on the truck insurance. My God, even when we were trying to get insurance in the U.S., I mean, the stuff and stories that we heard was unreal. I mean, I never knew half these things in the U.S. Existed. But I mean, back to the topic, the Oklahoma Patrol and ICE, the joint mission. So what they did, basically, they busted 125 trucks, and 125 trucks out of 520 vehicles. That is a lot. Like, we're not talking about 1 or 2%. You have to understand, out of every 100 trucks in the US, 25%, 25 of them, that's the stat just from the Oklahoma. I mean, should other states, do pop-ups? Hell yeah, they should. I mean, do I think that this is great for, for the American people? Absolutely. Do I think that this is great for, I mean, I hate the fact, because what's going to happen is a lot of these foreigners are going to end up coming to Canada, and Canada does not have strict rules. I mean, that they're very much, we still have, just like, the Biden administration. That's what we have here in Canada. But I mean, is this good for the U.S.? Absolutely, it's good for the U.S. Is this good for the trucking? For the current truck drivers in the U.S.? Absolutely. For the American truck drivers, yes, this is a great thing that's happening. I mean, even if it's not 190,000, even if it's just, 40, 50, 60,000, but from the numbers that Oklahoma pulled over, 25% out of the 520 of the drivers that were from Russia, from China, from India, from Venezuela, were licensed illegally. Those are crazy numbers. Unreal. So any questions over here? Anybody have anything to say, or anybody have any information that maybe what they're seeing, or if you're in other states? What about Mexican B1 carriers that break the rules? So definitely there are a lot of both Canadian and American and Mexican companies that are breaking the rules. It's usually with smaller companies here in Canada that are doing it. How do I know this? I actually consulted a couple of companies, and when I asked them to send me your dispatch forms, they're smaller companies with 10, 12 trucks. Send me all your lanes. I wanted to see if it's profitable lanes, non-profitable lanes. Then I see, holy shit. I said, I see a load going from Wyoming into Ohio, or Wyoming because they go into Canada, into Alberta, and then they'll drop down, and then they'll do an interstate load. I said, well, what are you doing? And he's like, what do you mean, what am I doing? I said, well, you're not allowed to do US to US loads. And he's like, yeah, but everybody's doing it. I said, what do you mean everybody's doing it? You're not allowed. These are unbelievable what's happening in our trucking industry. And at the end of the day, you need somebody like this Sean Duffy. You need people that are willing to, flip mountains and preserve the rules. I mean, there are rules in place, and you're not allowed to break them. And that's really, with the soft administration, with the soft, prime minister here, people just break rules left, right, and center, and it drives me nuts. There's a lot of drivers driving illegally with expired authorizations. I mean, yes, that's what they're getting at, and that's what they're cracking down on. There's a lot of drivers. Let's go. Hopefully, Canada will adopt United States policies. Oh, I wish I mean, to tell you the truth, whenever they say, honestly, I mean, some Canadians might find offense to this, but whenever they say Canada being the 51st state, for me, honestly, it's, where do I sign? I'm down for it. A lot of Canadians would not agree with me, but you know what? I think it would be better for us, for Canadians, if we were a part of the U.S. Would dispatchers have scope? Okay, people are going to the DMV and they are being rejected because they need an I-9 as well as a passport. Right now, DMV is under an audit. They are going through all visas and non-domiciles. Okay, great. So this is not, this is amazing news, because not only are they getting people off the roads, they're stopping people from getting their Class 1 licenses, which means if you were in the U.S., if you came to the U.S. and you're like, oh, I want to get my Class 1 license for 6 months, for 8 months, or if you, as an asylum seeker, then you are, you are going to get stopped, meaning that your plans just went to the crap right now. Why? Because they just put an end to, this whole show of people getting, having, visitor visas and getting their class 1 licenses, working for 3, 4, 5 months. I don't know how they're going to do this locally. I don't know how they're going to do it in Illinois. I don't know how they're going to do it in the state of New York. There's lots of people there with, with visitor visas and are working. But again, we'll leave that to ICE. Insurance, laughing out loud. Try to get one in New Brunswick for a small company, 1 to 3 trucks, close to impossible. Fred, you're more than welcome to, schedule a consultation with me. I'll be more than happy to help you out to get the insurance for a small company in New Brunswick. We ourselves, Fred, are in New Brunswick, and I'd love to maybe talk to you a little bit about the options that you have in New Brunswick. Guys, if anybody needs a 5, 10, if anybody needs a 15, I think I have 15-minute options. If anybody needs to ask me any questions or wants to get on a quick call with me, you're more than welcome to. I'll drop a link below, and you guys are welcome to schedule me at 15 minutes, half an hour. There's a lot of people like Fred that just need quick advice, or I can guide them or send them into the right direction. I'd be more than happy to do that. Would more people do dispatch courses? So thank you for bringing up the dispatch courses, guys. If anybody's thinking of getting off the road, if anybody's thinking of maybe, should I do dispatching? Is this the right thing for me? You're more than welcome. I'll drop another link down below with our dispatch course. It's a very, very popular course. If anybody's thinking about it, you guys are more than welcome to take it. I'll put it in the comments. All right, let's go. Cabotage, yes. So yeah, we talked about that, guys. It's illegal. Mexicans are only allowed to come into the US, do a delivery, do a pickup, come back into Mexico. Canadians, the same thing. We're only allowed to go into the US, do a delivery, pick up a load that originates in the US that only is destined for Canada. Okay, and that's what we're allowed to do. But yes, there's a lot of Canadian companies, and I know this for a fact, that do US to US work, and it's stealing jobs from Americans. How do you guys stop that? I don't know. Sean Duffy is going to need to figure that one out. Now we know why so much carriers went bankrupt. Okay, Barstow, California. Now you have to understand that a lot of these non-domicile drivers are what's keeping some of the carriers in the US alive. Okay, let me give you an example. If a company with 150 trucks, of which maybe 50, 60 people of their community are non-domicile drivers, if those guys are getting kicked out, these companies are going under. Okay, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of American companies that are trying to hire Canadian drivers. I had a few drivers that left me, and when I asked them, hey, where are you going? They said, we're going to work for an American company. And I said, how are you going to work for an American company? You don't have the status. Oh, no, they love Canadian drivers. Why? Because they can get away with paying them a lot less. And the same thing goes with American trucking companies hiring Mexicans to work. Why? They have a B1, B2 visa, and their driver's license is recognized in the US, which means that if my Canadian driver goes into the US, he's fully legal and compliant with his Canadian Class 1 license, right? So an American company can pitch my driver and say, hey, why are you working for this guy at 50 cents per mile or 55 cents per mile? And 55 cents per mile is about 38, 39 cents US. We'll pay you 45 cents US. We'll pay you 48 cents US. It's a heavy discount compared to what they're paying American drivers. They'll take my Canadian driver. They will hire them under the driver Inc., meaning that they can avoid all the payroll and all the taxes. They hire them as if they're self-employed. They'll work there for 6 months. They'll come back. And I promise you this does happen, because I talk to my drivers that leave and I said, hey, what's the reason that you're leaving? And they say, listen, honestly, I got an offer in the US that I just can't resist. I said, but you're not allowed to work in the US. Oh, it's okay. And tell me, these are big reputable companies? And they say, yeah, they're pretty decent sized companies that are doing this. So, wow, this is unbelievable that this kind of crap is happening. But yes, Mexican drivers get pitched all the time for American jobs, and same thing with Canadians. They also get pitched with the with American jobs. Now, why do the Canadians take it or the Mexicans take it? Because they're working for an American company, and because the pay is so much higher, and because their license is valid. Okay, so it's a win for the American companies. Let's go out to send ICE. Canada is not for sale. I told you there's going to be a lot of people that don't agree with me. That's fine. Is this present situation going to affect dispatch services in the US? So no, I don't think that dispatch services, you have to understand, even though it drives me crazy when there's a dispatcher on the line that can barely speak English, it drives me nuts, literally. But I don't think, by being a dispatcher, you're not, even if you're in a third world country, you're not putting people at risk or in danger. The reason why they're targeting the truck drivers right now is because of the accidents that happen that have fatalities. Plus, because of the previous administration, they let everybody and anyone walk into the US. Like, honestly, my story, a personal story of mine, right? I am trying to, work on my immigration papers to come into the US legally. My wife and I talked about it. We said, listen, I have the trucking company in the U.S. I think I want to move there. Where in the U.S. I don't know. It's either going to be Georgia or Florida. But we talked about it, and I'm trying to work on papers, to get into the U.S. And I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, I've been at it for 6 months, working on my paperwork nonstop. I have a daughter that lives in the U.S. I have 3 kids here in Canada with my current wife, and I'm thinking to myself, the kind of loopholes that they're putting me and making me go through to get this, L1 visa, or the, B1, not B1, what is it called? The E1 or E2 visa. I'm like, holy crap. I said, you're telling me that I have to go through all this stuff, but somebody can just walk into the US in the previous administration, get their, whatever status they get, and they're able to be in the US for 10 years. That's nuts. That is crazy. And I honestly think that this is the shift. And some people won't agree with me, but I hear a lot of Canadian companies are transferring into the US and are trying to move into the US. Just like myself, I feel like it would be Canada. It's no longer for me. For me and my family, I feel like the US is probably a better place for me and my family. And I must say, that this is the stuff that I'm going through right now in order to, for my paperwork, is just outrageous. But I have to say that there is, he does make sense. Trump does make sense with what he's doing, because I see a lot of Canadian companies are opening in the US. He wants to bring the money into the US. And he also wants to bring the people into the US. I think that when he thinks of, who do I want in the US? Do I want Canadians, that are business owners? And, he wants to attract a different set of people, and he wants to stop the flow from the South or from everyone else. And, rightfully so, thinking about it and looking more at the bigger picture, he's 100% right with what he's doing. I don't like the fact that he's picking on Canada, but at the end of the day, a lot of Canadian companies are opening up shop in the US. All right, let's talk about especially with fuel. Okay, cabotage, especially with fuel. I don't know what that means. Don't care. Screw that company. Okay. Hey, Prince Edward Island. Okay. Let's see. The real problem is the high percent earned brokerage. Brokerage is a whole nother problem, but again, you can't tell people how much they make. I mean, have you seen how much money factoring companies make? Have you seen how much money? I mean, there's a lot of people in our industry that are making a ton of money. How come nobody's complaining about these outrageous labor rates? I mean, I've done some videos on some crazy labor rates in the US, calling just different dealerships. I'm not going to mention any names, but $250 an hour, $280 an hour, $300 an hour. I mean, who are we to tell another business how much to charge? So I don't agree with that. I mean, a brokerage company can charge whatever they want. Same thing with a repair facility. They can charge whatever they want. I don't think that we can get involved with that, but who knows? Definitely transparency might be, a different angle that we can shoot for. But what brokerages make, that's their problem. Same with these drivers didn't have names. Yeah, so the driver that didn't have a name on their driver's license, I mean, that's just plain fucking stupid. Excuse my language, but I mean, how in the world do you issue a driver's license to somebody, that doesn't have a name on the driver's license? That's just, plain dumb. IRS needs to do its job. Correct. How about the box trucks? I'm sorry, I don't know much about box trucks. That's not my forte. It's not my specialty. They need to go after companies hiring these drivers. Yes, they do need to go after the companies that are hiring these drivers, but if the rules are not in place, why would they not take advantage of it? So, yes, you can go after the trucking companies, but again, we got to put rules in place, and people need to be afraid of making, it all starts with the application. I mean, if people are lying in their application, then how, like, and people are getting away with it. Like, what's that lady's name? I saw her that she pretended like she married her brother or something like that. She got, and she's a senator, or she's, somewhere high, something high up there in the US. And I'm thinking to myself, if you guys are letting people get away with that, then why are you blaming truck drivers for lying in on their applications? Like, you have to put an end to it publicly, right? But anyways, that's just my opinion. Ronan, we would happy to have you here. Thank you, Rick. I truly appreciate that. Legal immigration, illegal, why? On one thing they were doing was overstaying their work permits, and the license showed that they were getting 4-year licenses with a non-domicile license. It was supposed to expire with a work permit. That is 100% correct. So just to explain that a little bit more, so when somebody is getting their class one, their license in the U.S., their truck license, the CDL license in the U.S., if your visitor or if your work permit expired in a year, the license should have only been valid for 1 year. So you can't have a CDL for 4 years and your work permit is expiring in 1 year. That's really where the problem is, and that's what they're finding where the problems are. Drivers in Canada should have to speak English also. Oh, don't get me started on drivers in Canada. I really think I'm going to do a video soon. All my phone calls are recorded, and sometimes I get phone calls coming in, and man, I get irritated when I cannot understand the person on the phone. Now, I don't mean a light accent, and I don't mean, carrying a conversation with them. I'm talking about not understanding anything a person is saying because they can barely speak English. And that I'm definitely going to do a video on that so you can see, what we deal with. After taking and finishing the dispatch course, how much money can we make monthly work as a dispatcher? So when you take a dispatch course, I mean, if you think that you are going to nail yourself $100,000 job, I mean, don't kid yourself, you're not. You are probably going to be able to get an entry-level job. One of the things, I mean, the dispatch course geared towards is, if you're a driver, you should open up your own. And if you need my help, I'm definitely there. If you want to buy trucks and put them in my fleet, there's an option for that also over there. And I can teach you everything from start to finish with buying trucks and putting it into somebody else's fleet while you are dispatching those drivers, while you are getting your license, permits, and authorities. There's definitely there's a system in place that will help you to open up your own trucking company. But if you think you're going to take a dispatch course and you're going to, bank 100, 120K after that, I mean, don't think that, because it's not going to happen. All right. I want to move to the good USA. Okay. Make Canada the 51st state. I would agree with that. Trump is right. He is. You just said it, the right kind of people. I agree with you. Okay. Or whichever comes first, if the work permit expires and the license was supposed to, or whichever came first, the non-domicile supposed to be 1 year. Yes. Factoring is insanity. Lumper fee, $1,000. That's ridiculous. You are correct. I mean, there's a lot of outrageous fees happening in our industry. Freight rates in Canada are ridiculous. How can anyone make any money? You can make money. You need good guidance. Feel free to reach out to me and book a 15 or half an hour call, and I will show you how to make money even with today's rates. I've been told that they are getting rid of the clearinghouse and going to zero tolerance. I haven't heard that, but I'll definitely. Elon Omar. Oh, that's the woman's name. That's right. Yeah. All right. How soon will we feel the impact of all the unlawful drivers being removed, in your opinion? So I'll tell you now, the state of Oklahoma, I mean, 520 vehicle checkpoint. I think this was just a sample pool for them that it makes sense to do this. I think this is just a test. This is just, this is going back. All these stats are going to go back to Sean Duffy, and he's going to now say, okay, let's get more states involved in this. This was amazing. We got 125 drivers off the road. If we were able to have a 25%, statistics, definitely Florida will follow. I definitely feel like Texas will follow one by one, and it's going to shoot up very quickly in our industry. So you have to understand that if you have a class 1 license, if you have a CDL, if you're a CDL holder, and you believe that, you know that you are from China, Venezuela, Russia, India, wherever you are, and you don't want to get into trouble with these guys. So it's better to go back to your country and not have a stain on your file, because maybe in the future you will still be able to come to the US, because if they catch you, you are done. You will never be able to come into the US once they catch you. right? So if you pull over that truck and if you go back to the country where you're from, or if you pull over that truck and come off the road, maybe do something else, or you need to obviously get some legal help. But if you come off, if they catch you, you are done. They're going to send you back to the country where you came from, and you will never be able to come into the U.S. again. But if you do it, what is it called? There's a word for it. Willingly, if you do it by yourself without them catching you, I think you have a better chance of coming into the U.S. in the future. And that's what I think is going to happen once there's going to be 3 or 4 pop-ups. So then maybe the only option would be getting a local job in the New York or getting a local job in Illinois. Those would be your 2 options until they find a way to get into Illinois and get into New York. And maybe a couple of other states, but everybody else, I think, would be on board with this, especially because of the fatalities. The fatalities supersedes the problem. It makes it the national emergency. Like, that's what they're going for, and they're definitely going to make wind with this. And this was just a sample. This is one of many that's going to happen, and we're not going to know about it. We're just going to hear about, okay, Texas opened up a pop-up, and Ohio opened up a pop-up in Wisconsin, or maybe Minnesota or somebody else opened up a pop-up. But definitely think this is going to happen. All right. Just read a story that a fairly large trucking company had their safety department call each and every single driver to talk about. Yeah, so I actually read that story. It was really, really cool. So safety manager gets on the phone and says, hey, one by one starts talking to the drivers. Now, if the safety manager was not able to have an open conversation with the driver over the phone, meaning that he couldn't understand him or the driver didn't understand, the driver comes back to the terminal and he gets terminated on the spot. Safety managers are not playing games. They don't want you don't want your assets stuck in different locations. It's very costly to bring them back. So we had one safety. I saw the video. It was really, really cool. Very uh, was he in the right? Absolutely. Listen, if these are the new rules coming out, the last thing you want now as a fleet manager is your truck stuck in some, Utah or, anywhere in the US when when you're a couple of thousand miles away. The amount of money to fly a driver out there to bring that asset back, it's not, it's very expensive. Canada's being one giant state is a really dumb idea. Okay. I mean, yeah, you're right. Maybe they need to give it definitely more thought. Do you see rates going up? So Canada to the US, the rates have gone up a little bit. I highly recommend for any manufacturing plant out there, you need to hold on to those carriers, give them a little bit more right now, but you are going to, feel it the most in the next 6 months. I feel like the rates are going to shoot up. This is a great time to get into trucking because right now we are going to clean up house both in Canada. I mean, Canada is definitely going to take a lot of lessons from the US, but I feel like the industry is going to get cleaned out and the rates are going to skyrocket. Like, it's not just going to go from 2 to 210 to 220 to 230 the rate per mile. It's going to shoot up to 253, 3.5, 4, because the industry is getting cleaned out. Not a like they're limiting the amount of CDLs that they're going to give out. And I feel like the rates are going to go up, and they're going to go up fast. I'm happy for Canada to be their own nation anyways. I mean, I'm also, but I think we should definitely have one currency, one economy. And for us to have our sovereignty, maybe that's a better route. They're moving fast to remove illegal drivers real fast. So, Army Guy, thank you very much. You've been very helpful in this, in this live. With a lot of great information, but I also believe that they're going to be moving real fast right now to get a lot of people out because the American economy is suffering. American drivers are having a hard time paying the bills. American drivers need to see an increase in their pay. American drivers need to benefit from the increase in pay. American drivers have been suffering until today because the pay increase hasn't gone up because a lot of foreigners were taking their jobs and there's no competition right now. For every job there's 3 drivers. If you make for every job, for every 5 jobs, if you only make 3 drivers available like it was post COVID, now you have a war for drivers. And now you see the drivers pay that is going to go up from 60 cents to 65 to 70 to 75 really, really quickly. Okay. All right. So it's funny, but for a long time, Canada immigration policy was very tight where they allowed it. Yes. So you're right. Canada's immigration policies were phenomenal under Harper. But unfortunately, we had, Biden-like administration for 9 years, and now it continues to be like that. And I think that's why you see a lot of people, a lot of Canadians, well-established Canadians that are have good businesses, and they're all looking to go down south because they just had enough with this, with these politics. Stay and get caught. Stay legally and compliant. Stay legal and compliant. Correct. It is self-deport. You can come back legally. That's the terminology. Roger, thank you very much. So if you self-deport, you will be able to put a file together, maybe in the future, and come back into the US. If you are caught, you can forget about it. You're never coming back into the US. So make your decisions wisely. They have fake names. They don't care, and it won't matter. That is also very, very true about fake names. If somebody allowed them to put a no name on their driver's license, then what's it to say about fake names? Cheap viewers on I don't know what this means. Local driver here in Texas are telling me the troopers are pulling them over for inspections 3 to 4 times a week. So Texas is on board to get the East. We definitely need, you kind of need a couple of northeast states to to get on board with this, and then you're gonna close the loop. But I'm sure Florida would definitely be on board for this. If you get caught, man, fingerprint never go away. That's true. So another thing is, yeah, if you self-deport, you are good. But if you get caught, you get fingerprints, and that's never going away. That is very true. Okay, Texas has really ramped up its DOT enforcement over the last 2 years. No doubt Texas will follow. There's a lot of drivers here that need to be taken off the road. Once they get you, it will be much harder to work in the US. I agree. I want BC as the 51st state. It's absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Roger. You can't pick and choose what you want and what you don't want. We come as a package. Rates will go up for both Canada and the US. Thank you, Sean Duffy. Daniel, I actually agree with that. I hope you're right about the rates. Me too. They are all telling you when you are popping up, not like before. Oh, they are. Oh, they're not telling you. Yes. So that is the key. They're not telling you when they're popping up, which is great because sometimes you can avoid it. But here, if they just have a pop up out of nowhere, this would be, it's definitely going to clean up house. All right. Any other, if they get rid of thousands of those who are illegal, do you think the myth of shortage of drivers? Oh, I hate hearing the shortage of drivers. There's definitely not a shortage of drivers. And if there is a shortage of drivers, then all of a sudden the, what is the word I'm looking for? The job truck driver is going to gain some respect. It's going to gain some like monetary bump up for sure. Shortage, the working conditions of truck drivers are going to get better and better and better when there is a shortage of drivers. When there is, when you don't have a shortage of drivers, people are abusing drivers left, right, and center. And when there's a shortage, drivers get treated like kings. Do I believe in shortage of drivers? No, I don't. I believe shortage of drivers is a scam. I truly believe it's, a gateway to government funding. I feel like every time, people say shortage of drivers, all of a sudden there's 1,000,001 government programs for people to become truck drivers. At the end of it, I mean, we have these huge fleets that are pumping out drivers. They have their own driving schools. They just need to fill in seats. And there is a big problem in our industry. But that's another problem. I think that this is great that we're cleaning up house through this problem. But definitely there's a lot of problems in our industry. Always watching you. Love your channel. Thank you, Army Guy. I really appreciate it. I tried to sign on with you, but never heard from anyone in your company. Wayne, I'm really sorry. We do have, you're more than welcome. Send me an email to sponsorship@ettransport.ca, and I'd love to help you out with your file. We do get an influx of calls into the office every single day, and it's very hard for the recruiters because, we only have 120 trucks, and we have no intentions of growing our fleet anytime soon until everything gets stabilized because it's just been a shit show. And honestly, every company, I would say, is probably bleeding out cash right now, or over the last 18 months. The only problem is the bigger companies have much deeper pockets, where the smaller companies, as you can see, they're all going under one by one. So hopefully this is going to be like the big push in the right direction. Hopefully gain competent drivers. DMV in Washington state are giving now timelines till October 10th to bring a valid paperwork, green card, or citizenship, or your CDL is revoked. Woof! This is going to be a huge story. Okay, Washington state are giving now timeline till October 10th. I need to research this. Where's my admin? Admin, if you can please make a note of that. DMV in Washington state are giving now timeline till October 10th. So if you have until October 10th to bring your valid paperwork, green card, or citizenship, or your CDL is revoked, this is huge. Okay, so you might have like literally overnight thousands of people just losing their license, which is crazy. Now, another thing I would caution, I mean, this paperwork, is it real? Is it not real? Who the hell knows? I just know one thing, that, you know, I've stumbled upon lots of paperwork that is fake that comes on my desk. It's very hard to tell, but you really need to question every single document that comes to you in your hand. Thank you, Ronan. Great content. Guys, thank you very much. I think we've been at it for 45 minutes. We're going to end it. I really appreciate for those of you that logged in and took the time. You know, stay tuned. Make sure you're part of this channel, because I talk about these things a lot. Again, if you're not in the trucking industry, you probably will not find our content interesting. But if you are in the trucking industry, you know, make sure you're a subscriber to any one of our channels. And I look forward to, you know, to seeing you guys all in the next live or in one of my next videos. But thank you very much. If you guys can, you know, take a second, if you enjoy this content, you know, put a thumbs up. I would really, really appreciate it. It kind of does well with the algorithm. If you can put a comment, I mean, put a comment. I'd love to hear some of your feedbacks out there. If we get a lot of comments on this, you know, we definitely will create more content, as, you know, things will get updated. But another thing, there's going to be another, you know, live session probably on the English proficiency, where I'm going to actually get, you know, some more you know, some details about that, what they're looking for, and what is meant by English proficiency in detail, not just the word English proficiency. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I'm Ronan, and I'll catch you in my next live stream. Thanks, guys.